So I'm recording this on June 21st, 2026, which is a significant date because tomorrow the UFC is going to be debuting their new ranking system. So I figured I would show you guys the system that I came up with about a year or so ago that I've kind of just been sitting on and haven't really known what the fuck to do with, but figured now's the time better than ever to get it on video and out there for people to see and comment on and whatever. But what this system is sort of inspired by European football, how their leagues rank their teams and whatnot, where they come up with a point system and all that. Which is what I wanted to do here is get fighters onto a point system where we could rank them on a point system. Obviously, this is not. I don't think this would be a perfect system. I don't think you should use this as an end all be all. This is something that would ideally be referenced with other sort of ranking systems, compared and contrasted, used to ultimately come up with an end all be all ranking system. Although I think this is fundamentally sound. The idea of this is simplicity. We want to rank fighters based off their past performances within a certain time frame, and we're gonna slightly factor in strength of opponent. We're also, with this system, going to be not necessarily encouraging activity or frequent activity, I should say, in fights, but definitely discouraging inactivity of fights for two reasons. Mainly to, you want a ranking system, I think, to discourage a champion from taking long time off from defending the belt. And for two, ring rust, I think, is definitely something that kind of needs to be factored into any sort of ranking system. Time off is big, especially if it's from injury or whatever it may be. So what our parameters are here is we're ranking people on their last 5 fights within the last 30 months. So that means 5 fights with 6 months gap in between each fight, which I think is a pretty realistic for your typical active fighter in the UFC. I think 6 months in between fights is kind of realistic. Maybe that number could be a little bit bigger, but for our sake, it's going to make it easier for us in the ranking system here. So what we're doing is method of victory is determining your points here. 6 points for KO, TKO, stoppage, retirement, or submission. Retirement being somebody retiring on the stool. 5 points for a unanimous decision victory. 4 points for a split decision victory. 3 points for a draw or no contest. That's your middle of the road points there. 2 points for a split decision loss. 1 point for a unanimous decision loss, and 0 points for a KO, TKO, or submission loss. So that's I'm wanting to give credit to fighters that, for one, split decision losses are not all equal. There's lots of split decision losses out there that could have easily gone the other way, so we don't want to totally punish people for taking a loss in that factor. Unanimous decision loss, you hung in there. You should at least get a point, in my opinion, for that. If you get stopped, okay, whatever. Now, this is obviously not a perfect point-based system. The idea of this is to keep it simple. We don't want to get bogged down in the minutia of, you know, round one, this or that. The idea is to make this as simple as possible in my eyes. And now that gets into our bonus points here. Bonus points do not overlap. What these are to help factor in strength of opponent, like I was saying. So we get plus 1 point to your base scale here for fighting anyone who has fought in a title fight in their last 3 fights, interim titles included. Now that there's no, these 3 fights are not including our 30-month cutoff. These are just the last 3 fights that they had. You'll see what I mean when we go through this here. And then plus 3 for fighting in a title fight, interim included. Now, like I said, these points do not overlap. So that means if you're fighting in a title fight against somebody who's the champion, obviously they would have been fighting in a title fight in their last 3 fights. No. It's one or the other. So that's the point system. I think that all makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the main event of the upcoming fight night. Fiziev versus Torres. And I got a little Photoshop thingy here. Fiziev, Torres. Now, we're going to rank these two fighters against each other. What's the first thing we need to determine? Our cutoff date. So these 30 months these are not going from the date of the fight. These are going from the date of when you're ranking it. That's how I'm doing it. You maybe could do this from the date of the upcoming fight if you really wanted to. For our purposes, I'm going to go with the date of when we're ranking it, which, like I said, so let's pull up Photoshop here. Today is 6/2/2026. So we're going back 30 months. So right away we know 24 months is 2 years. So we'll go, whoa, so goofy 2. 2024. Okay. But now we have to, so that's 24 months. That still leaves us 6 months. So we need to go back 6 months from June, which is 6. So that actually puts us back at December 21st. Not 2024, but 2023. So this is our cutoff date. So try to keep that in mind going forward, because I'm going to make that invisible. We're going to pull this up here. So now these are our 5 fights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do Fiziev first here. So like I said, this is supposed to be simple. Anybody can do this. Not only anybody can do this, but I'll discuss later. But anyway, let's just go ahead and do this. So, cutoff date. February 1st, 2026. June 2025. March 2025. Here we go. September 23rd, 2023. That is before, or September, I'm sorry. That's before December 21st, 2023. So these 2 fights right here don't count. So let's do, we'll go this way. Boom. That fight don't count. That fight doesn't count. Okay. So that means we are starting from this fight. Justin Gaethje, March 8th, 2025. And now you can see there's the gap here because he had a knee injury in this fight. So this gap makes sense. And now again, this is where our time, you see he's instantly getting no points for these 2 fights. That's where the inactivity factor comes into play here. So Justin Gaethje. Now this is a name you already know just by looking at his name, that there's a good chance that he has fought for a title probably within the last 3 fights of fighting this dude. So let's go down here. Now these guys have fought twice, but we want this fight, the second fight. This is where we're going back from. So we want 1, 2, 3. So let's look at these fights. So symbolic UFC BMF title, symbolic UFC BMF title, and then he fought Fiziev again. So the BMF might as well fucking count as an interim title. So for our purposes here, we are going to count this as, back to our points here, +1 for fighting anyone who has fought in a title fight in their last 3 fights. So back here, we're just going to go ahead and put a +1 up there. Boop, boop. For Gaethje. And now what happened in that fight? It was a unanimous decision loss, which according to our points here, is 1 point. So 1, but +1 because he fought a title contender, former title contender. So let's take away that 1 and make that 2. So this is, you know what, let me do this here. Just so this is a little bit easier. 1 + 1, that gives us 2. Next fight. Let's get rid of Gaethje's page here. Ignacio Bahamondes. Now, I'm going to go ahead and guess that this guy didn't fight for a title. But just for our purposes of looking at it here, we can see there's the Fiziev fight. Boom, boom, boom. There's his last 3 performances. Performances of the night, all impressive, but for our purposes, doesn't matter. So, no bonus points awarded for the unanimous decision victory, which is 5 points. Back here, boom. Let's give him 5. Now, last fight, Mauricio Rufy. Let's take a look at Rufy. There's Fiziev. 1, 2, 3. No title fights there. So no bonus points, and that was a TKO loss. So that's a big fat goose egg for our boy Fiziev on that. Now, that gives him 7 points. Let's move on to Torres. Okay, so where's his cutoff date? Remember, it's December 21st, 2023. So boom, boom, we're good. June 17th, 2023. That is before December. Doesn't count. So his last fight amongst the 5 does not count. So, boom, X on that. Whoops. Alright. So, that don't count. So, we're on to Chris Duncan. Which, let's go ahead and look at Mr. Duncan here. Most likely didn't have a title fight. It's been active, but no title fights, it looks like, right? 1, 2, 3. And again, remember, we're not... This is all the way back to 2022, but this still counts as far as our bonus points. If they're... Say he were to fight for a title all the way back here on August, which he didn't, but it was his return to lightweight. This would still count for our bonus points, but in this case, it does not. So, no bonus points. Oh, wait, and I'm sorry. What was the method of victory there? Submission, rear naked choke. So, that's the highest point total you can get on your base scale there. So, that's a 6er. Ow. Okay. Next up here. Ignacio Bahamondes, common opponent with Fiziev, which that was a TKO loss. We already looked at Bahamondes, but look at him again. So, boop, boop, boop. No title fights. And that is a goose egg. Boom. Okay. Now then. Dober. TKO punches. Any bonus points? There's Torres. 1, 2, 3. Nope. So, base 6. And Grant Dawson. Whoops. There's Torres. 1, 2, 3. No title fight. No bonus points. Base 6 off TKO punches. Boom. So that gives us 6 plus 6 plus 6. 18. Which would put Torres over Fiziev. Okay, I want to use another individual example. This time, we're going to do light heavyweight champion Carlos Ulberg. And we're still using our same cutoff date, which fucking Carlos doesn't even have a picture on his Wikipedia page right now if you ever needed to know about the state of the UFC. Like, Jesus Christ. Seriously? But anyway. So, December 21st is our cutoff. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so all of his fights are going to count, which is a good example for us. So, first fight up on our list here, Alonzo Menenfield. I'm going to say Alonzo is not 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he did not fight for a title. So, baseline 6 on that one. Next up, Volkan Ozdemir. So let's get rid of Alonzo there. Okay, Volkan. Record. Alberg. Then Johnny Walker. Then Bogdan Guskov. And then Nikita Krylov. So no title fight in there. And that was a unanimous decision. Respectable 5 points. Jan Blachowicz. Let's see here. So there's Carlos. Then Pereira. Then Magomed Ankalaev for the vacant UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. And then Rakic. So we are getting +1 on this. Which this is a decision, unanimous decision victory. So remember, +1 for that. To our base 5 is 6. Okay. I don't think I need to leave that up there. So we have 6 off a bonus point. Next, Dominic Reyes. Actually, you know what? No, hold on. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I do want to leave. Let's do it this way, though. Yeah, okay, hold on. Yeah, 5 + 1. We'll do it like that. For that 6. Just so we know that this was because of bonus points. We want to just keep track of that for our own sake. Alright, next up now. Dominic Reyes. Sorry about that. Let's do this here. There's Alberg, Krylov, Anthony Smith, Dustin Jacoby. No title fight. KO punches. So that's a base 6. Boom. And then Yuri Brahacevich. And this was a title fight, so there's no need for us to go any further than looking right here. So that's a KO over Jiri. So this is our maximum point total that he can earn. 6 + 3 for a total of 9 points. That's the highest you can earn on this scale. Total 0 to 9 point scale. So let's add our shit up here. So 6 + 6 + 6. We know from before. 18 + 19, 27. +5 is 32. Yes. So, big difference in points. And 32 for Alberg here. Big difference from the 2 fighters we were looking at earlier who are main eventing a card coming up this upcoming weekend. So, we know Alberg has 32 points and he is currently the champion of the division. But is he the highest ranking fighter on this point scale system? We will determine that. Okay, so what I've gone ahead and done is ranked not the entire UFC light heavyweight division, but the majority of the UFC light heavyweight division. Most fighters, I've pretty much got every fighter with a Wikipedia page, I'm pretty sure. But before we look at my rankings, let's just quickly look at Tapology, which, sweet Tapology. Oh, we only get to see the top 6, and then we got to sign up for whatever your stupid account is. No, thank you. So we got Alberg at the top, champion, obviously. Pereira, Ankalaev, Jiri, Roundtree, Reyes, Costa, and then Ozdemir at number 8. Now this is the UFC's rankings, which now to gripe about UFC is this is the page we get. I can't just click on light heavyweight, click on Olberg, and this is what you get. So we got this tiny ass list along with 3 other tiny ass lists to go off. So we got our. This is how they should rank it, by the way. Tapology. Why are you even ranking the champion? That doesn't matter. Once he's champion, he is champion. The rankings should go after the champion, but that's fine. My rankings technically include the champion too, so I can't bitch that much, I guess. But so we have Olberg as champion, then Ankalaev, Pereira, Jiri, Jan Blachowicz, Roundtree, Jamal Hill, Costa, Mirzakhanov, Ozdemir, Guskov, Reyes, Krylov, Walker, Rakic, and then Menenfield. So, that's theirs. That's Topology again, just for a quick glance. I'm going to probably try to pull these up side by side. But now, this is my rankings. We have, right now, using my system, Pereira is technically... Now, this is also counting fights at different weight classes. So we're including Pereira's fight at heavyweight that just occurred. Pereira right now is 2 points over Olberg with 34. Olberg sitting at 32. You can go back and check all these. If you were paying attention before, these numbers and X's and everything should all make sense to you. And I'm not going to go through everybody individually here, but you can see a couple guys that are like... So Jiri is still pretty high up on my list, but you see guys like Guskov. Sterling I didn't see on anybody's list. Now this is, again, the only thing in my ranking system that really factors in strength of opponent is whether or not they were a former champion or former title challenger, or you're fighting for a title. Other than that, we're considering everybody on an even playing field, which I know is not a fair way to rank this, which is, again, why I said before that this is not... I don't think this is an end-all, be-all system, but comparing this, I feel like this is a more... I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like guys like Roundtree, I think, are ranked more accurately here because his last... if we're going with my cutoff... So let's see here. He's had 1 win in his past 3 fights, and it was a decision win against a title contender. He's lost to a title contender, and he's lost a title fight, earning him 10 points total, and then his other 2 fights don't count for me. Let's go over here where they show his 2 fights, which, boom, that's what we were just saying. Boom, boom. And then his last wins are all the way back 2003 or 2023, 2023, 2022. So, I mean, to me, the UFC is definitely a sport about what you've done lately, and you know what I mean? These wins back here, like, now granted, some of these wins are like close to the cutoff of months, and if you wanted to extend it another 2 months, 6 months, or whatever, I wouldn't even be opposed to it. So some of these guys are probably arbitrarily ranked lower than they should be just based off of my kind of strict cutoff. But at the same time, as you can tell, like, the people who are pretty active, like, they have no problem staying, you know, decently ranked up here. Where you look at a guy like Bozer, who I'm not counting his fights outside of the UFC, you know, hasn't had a fight in UFC, comes back, loses his fight, gets knocked out. Guys like Hill, you know, they've been kind of inactive. The inactivity weighs heavily on my list here. But again, like I said, this is something that I think should be used in conjunction with a typical ranking system or somebody else's system or whatever. But this is an example for you of where, if you were to use my ranking system, where the light heavyweight division sits now. I picked the light heavyweight division because there's considerably less light heavyweight fighters. I think light heavyweight and flyweight, if we're not counting women's divisions, are the two, like, least populated rosters. So that's why I picked light heavyweight, and that's why I picked Olberg at the start there to use him as an example to see where he ranks. And as we can see, he's within the top 3 or 4, which I think again, this is an imperfect system. So if you're really looking at like your top 5 names here as like serious contenders to the title, if not, having the title, which I'm pretty sure having Pereira 2 points ahead of Olberg. If Pereira and Olberg were to fight tomorrow, I'm willing to bet that Pereira would be the betting favorite coming into that, even after the loss at heavyweight. So I think there's some accuracy to this. There's some legitimacy to it. It's not perfect. So when I originally conceived this, the part of the simplicity of it was that I wanted to be able to come up with a phrasing that was good enough to be able to just copy and paste right in the chat GPT and then put a fighter's name after it and then have them punch out a score for me on the fly, which had very up and down success or whatever. But so through trial and error of trying to phrase out this stuff correctly, I was I asked ChatGPT or it kind of gave me what potential improvements could go on. So I kept my system how I wanted, but I did think, here's a bunch of just information it was giving me about. Oh, here we go. So this is what I was talking about. This is where it was talking about stuff to consider to add to the point system. Momentum +1 extra point for fights within most. So this would be a weighting frequency of fights a little bit more, which is. So let's see its rationale. Fighters who are currently in top form should be recognized for their recent achievements were heavily. So this is going on that same logic that the whole system is kind of based on, that the what you've done lately is more important than what you've done 2 years ago. Expand title fight bonus, yeah, whatever on that. Count for the type of victory more dynamically. Yeah, this is definitely something that should be considered, where you should be factoring in really like scores, judges scorecards, uh, strength of opponent, all that stuff. Adjust for weight class movement. That's something that can be considered. Although, for simplicity's sake, I don't think it's necessary right now. Strength of schedule modifier. That's something to consider. But then again, that's a whole nother factor of determining strength of schedule, opponent strength, all that stuff. Next gen bonus, 2+ points for younger fighters under 25 who beat top 10 opponents. Maybe. Loss recovery, bounce back bonus. Fighters who lose and then bounce back with a dominant win. Maybe additional 1 point. That's not a terrible idea. I would disagree with that though. Yeah. I just thought I would include you guys in on some of the thoughts that ChatGPT had about this when I was originally trying to come up with, like, because this is a bunch of shit that I was copy and pasting to try to see if I could copy and paste it back in and if it could fucking basically do what I just did. Because what I just did was literally go through the division, look at Wikipedia pages, cross-reference, write it down on a piece of paper, and then I typed it up on the screen so you guys would be able to see it. But all of this took me about, an hour and a half, really. So this is not something that's necessary to be put through ChatGPT or anything like that. Like, this is something that obviously you need to update weekly, especially with the frequency of UFC events now. If they have an event every week, these rankings are going to change. And obviously, like, with the time parameter put on these scores, they're slowly ticking down as time goes on. You know what I mean? Your score can't. Pereira isn't going to hold that 34 forever if he doesn't keep fighting. That's the whole idea of the system. So this is shit that needs to be updated weekly, kept track of, all that stuff. Which, with the UFC's might and power, you could put 2 people on each weight division and be able to punch these numbers up and have them at your beck and call for whenever you need them. Because, again, this is stuff that should be, I would say, like, have your traditional journalist poll, have your have something like this, or you can even have it to where, like, you have this, say, a fight a site like Tapology here has, okay, the Tapology based point system, blah blah blah, that's displayed right here on the side. But then, they're, however many writers or whatever they have that work for them, they have their own version of the point system that has things like weighted strength of schedule factored in or whatever, each to their own specifications and stuff like that, and then add those all together. You know what I mean? We need more data to really come up with truly accurate ranking systems and different ways of coming up with it. So, yeah, and so UFC is about to roll out their new ranking system here in a day, and I'm sure they're gonna hype up the fact that it's, this is super AI calculated. We've never used AI like this, blah blah blah, and that's all fine and good. And like I said, I was even trying to figure out a way to get ChatGPT to make this stuff easier on myself. So I get it, but I'm curious to see what their new ranking system entails, if it has anything like this sort of point system, which I doubt it will. But like I said, I figured this is something that I should get out there and just, include it into the pot and see what people have to say about it, if it is comparable to the new system that comes out or whatever. So, but yeah, I think that's all for the MMA ranking system, which I haven't come up with a good name for. The MMA Universal Point System, something. I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with a title by the time I put this video out. But that's the MMA point system I came up with.